Hello, everyone.
Hi, Dole.
Someone just got a meeting notification.
I think that was me, Dole.
No, I mean, about this meeting, I'm sure. Well,
Absolutely.
looks like we may have a few people hopping on still.
Dole, if you'd like, we can do a roll call so that way you know who all's in the room here and who we have online and confirm your
Terrific.
quorum. Want me to go ahead and start with that?
Please.
All right. So around the table here at PPACG, we have Cdot hailing from Denver. So we have Matt Jr., Lachelle. We have Brandy Williams, Jason Dosh, and then John Leosatos for PPACG. Online, I see Kathleen for CDOT, Wendy, Victoria, Brandy's in the room, sorry. Dole online, Debbie, Aoka, Darren, Amy, Sally, and Gail. Did I miss anybody coming on while doing roll for the minutes? Tim.
Yes. Yeah, you just got me. Tim
And
Roberts.
Kristen, I see Kristen on the line as well. All right. So with that, because we're spread between in person and online when making motions, make sure you state your name. That way we know who said what. And then if you are out on Zoom and you're not speaking, if you can mute yourself. And if you're in the room, if you are speaking, you have to make sure to turn your mic on so that those on Zoom can hear you. Thanks.
So a quorum has been established then?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to approving our agenda. Can I ask for a motion to approve the agenda?
This is Sally Riley, and I move to approve the agenda.
This is Tim Roberts. I'll second.
Thank you, Tim and Sally. Geez, John, I just lost my rhythm there. Any discussion about the agenda? Any question about the discussion or the agenda before we approve it? No? Okay, all those in favor of approving the agenda as it's been nominated, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say nay. Okay, motion approves, agenda is approved, thank you. Let's move on to any public comments that may be coming up that have not made it to the agenda, if there's any. Okay, that's easy enough. Speaking of approvals, moving on to approving the minutes of the August 19th meeting. Can I ask for a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
Actually,
This
I have a requested change. It shows me as not being in attendance, and I was in attendance for that one.
Do you have proof?
Yeah, I was one of the first motion seconders.
If that was in fact you, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so with Tim's amendment to actually show him as present.
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Tim. Do we have a second?
How do we know it's really you?
Here, let me turn off my video. There.
This is Sally, and I'll second the motion to approve the minutes with the one correction.
Thank you, Sally. All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes with the amendment included, say aye.
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 Or by a show of hands, all those opposed, say nay. All right, motion approves, and then the minutes are approved with the amendment. Thank you. Moving right along here. Actually, I should say moving forward right along here, right, Mark? Actually, John, if you want to do your board of directors meeting or update, that'd be great.
All right, thank you for the board of directors update. The board of directors met on last week on September 8th. There was a long discussion on the employee handbook revision. The practical upshot of that nearly hour-and-a-half discussion on Christopher Columbus Day is that PPACG will now be open on Christopher Columbus Day, but the employees will be taking a floating Christopher Columbus holiday sometime between the 1st and the 15th. So if you were saying, well, we can't meet with PPACG because they're closed, we will now be open that day. And it is good television if you do want to go back and watch the video for about an hour and a half. Under action items, Mark had the public hearing for the 2045 amendment, and we received no speakers. We did the functional class change for Woodland Park was approved. We did fiscal year 2022 to 2025 tip amendment number 2, which was approved. And we had a traffic safety update from Jason. We did pull from the agenda under the information items, the fiscal year 2022 to 2025 tip. And that is for a variety of reasons, which we'll get to in a later agenda item. So with that, that's my report for the Board of Directors meeting for September 8th. If there are any questions, I'm happy to entertain them.
Thanks,
We'll
John.
take the awkward silences. We're good, Dole.
Sounds good. Moving on to action items. Looks like John already referenced it a little bit, but Mark, if you want to kick off our 2045 amendment number 1.
Thank you, Dole. So yes, today PPACG staff is asking you to recommend approval of the plan amendment to the 2045 plan. But before you take action, I wanted to let you know what happened since this came to you in July. So the plan amendment went to the CAC in July and board in August as information. The plan amendment document, which hopefully you've all become familiar with at this point, was released by the board for public comment at the August meeting. The one thing I want to point out is the board requested additional language be added to the rail station design construction project in the plan amendment. And so it now includes language saying final approval to spend funding would be via additional to tip. So they just wanted that clarification there. And in terms of the public comment period, there were no comments received. Public hearing was held last week. And as John noted, there were no comments received at the hearing either. So unless anyone has any comments or questions, I ask that you recommend approval of the plan amendment. Thank you.
Any comments or questions? If anybody wants to go to page 9 of the document, there's a language for a proposed motion. Yep.
This is Victoria. I'll move the proposed motion.
Do we have a second? Thank you, Victoria.
This is Tim Roberts. I'll second the motion.
Okay, any additional discussion about this? Okay, thank you. All those in favor of doing the proposed motion? And John, for my information, is it fine to just reference a motion like that rather than stating it?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So then all those in favor of approving the proposed motion made by Victoria, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say nay. Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mark. And then John, it looks like you're up next.
So let's see, what is the next?
Looks like it's the 2023-2027 tip corrections as necessary.
All right. So, hey, Jess Bechtel, I sent you an email there. So for those of you who have not heard yet, we had to pull it off the agenda. And the reason is when Wendy, maybe I shouldn't be speaking for you, so I'll give a very brief overview, but I'll be calling on you next. Wendy had said, hey, I'm not comfortable with the tip moving forward as is because I'm not sure where some of these numbers came from. And I did my best to sort of find where the numbers came from. And I could not do it. And as we were going through this exercise back and forth, then I got a, now we know, related email from Victoria that said, hey, I've gone through the spreadsheet and I realized that some of the numbers aren't counting, or it doesn't add up. Some of the cells don't add up, the math in the cells. And I think we've got an extra $124,000 of STP. So I'm like, well, let me figure that out. And I couldn't figure that out either. So we had to pull it from the agenda. Subsequently, we have had discussions. Wendy has done a just awesome job of spending a lot of time to help piece it together, as has Victoria. So thank you to both of them. Credit where credit is due. We probably wouldn't know what's going on unless they sort of helped with what they with the whole thing. So on the STP portion of the funds, can you call up that one that says temporary STP? We found that the issue was that the math was, some of the numbers were entered incorrectly. And so you can see by the spreadsheet there at the very end, we did figure out that, okay, when we put the correct numbers in and we get it to match, then we realize that there is additional, about $41,000 per year that was not programmed. To this very second, I have no idea why we didn't quite have this number correct in the first place. And so if you can see there by Victoria's spreadsheet, so the STP numbers that we have in the tip, in the proposed tip, are actually good. If anything, we have an additional $124,000 to program. If Jess, could you please go to the other one that says tap temp? That's fun to say it 3 times fast, tap temp. On that one, there were sort of 2 issues. Well, the first issue was that the numbers were not adding up to what we were given by, is it Cheryl Kibble? Is that the right name? From the Cdot Denver, and couldn't figure it out. But now we finally figured it out. I was using a 72 point, what is it? Oh, the sliding scale match. So it's 82.71. Thank you.
8279.
8271. Yeah, 79. So I was using the 8279 and the CDOT was using an 8020. So I didn't realize that that TAP was not eligible for sliding scale here. So I was using the wrong number. Once I put in 8020, magically, the sun comes out, the rain clouds clear up, and we're only off by 34 cents. So I think with rounding, since we go to the nearest dollar, we're cool. I mean, again, 34 cents as to what the original numbers are or should be. So when we do that, we're off by 18,000 a year in 25, 26, and 27. And the difference between the, again, where we're in budget versus when we're 18,000 short about every year is because we were using the wrong match. Once we put in the correct match, we wouldn't have been over in the first place. So now the sort of the mystery is solved. We've got this figured out. My second part is when I look at the program distribution, and Kathleen Collins, heads up, I'm going to be sending you an email on this. I believe that this depicts the Region 2 share of TAP that we receive, but we have not programmed, to my knowledge, the PPACG direct TAP, which would be about a little over $1 million, 800,000-ish of ST of TA, federal TA that comes directly to the region, plus our required local match. Add those together, it's a little over $1 million, almost $1 million, 1.1 million. So we might have an additional funds coming our way. And I will look into that. So then you guys can decide if you want to do a tip amendment for that or not, or I'm completely wrong and you don't have to worry about it. So that's sort of where we're at on all of this. I think it's one of those things that's been very confusing and a lot of you don't even know there was a problem. But Tim and Victoria and Wendy all knew that there was a problem, and Brandy have been very helpful in helping me try to figure out the fix. So with that as an introduction, which may not have been very helpful, Wendy, can you do you have anything you want to add that I might have botched, or you want to provide any additional clarification?
Nope, you did a good job.
Well, I got one thing right. Apparently math's not my strong suit, but I appreciate that, Wendy. Okay. So with that, it's sort of the question to you all as a committee is, hey, this is great. What do we do from here? You really have two options. One is you say, let's tap the brakes. Let's take a month to review all the numbers and look at it again and have us redo the schedule. I think we had some open houses planned, so we might have to reschedule those for, instead of October, put them in November or December, and we would go from there. But definitely check with Wendy. We definitely can delay this and rearrange the schedule so that you guys are all comfortable. That being said, if you are comfortable and if there is some thought within the jurisdictions that you'd like to get this done sooner than later, because then you can get your paws on the money faster, and you would like to move forward, at this point, what would need to happen, and I think Tim Roberts, the onus would be on you in Colorado Springs and Gail, because the over-programmed TAP is all on your project, Colorado, so you would have to be comfortable with how that is addressed. And then as a group, you'd have to decide what you'd like to do with the additional 124,000 of STP. And again, do you want to wait a month and do a call for projects, or do you want to already put it on an existing project since you've already gone through all this brain damage already? So that's sort of what's the question to you. Delay, and maybe we put together a workshop, or see if we can't work through it here in the next 5-10 minutes. And again, I think that is basically all up to you and what you're comfortable with. There's absolutely no reason we can't delay. Brandy's in the room.
Yeah, can I ask a direct tap question? Can you explain that one more time, maybe a little bit slower or broader or something? Because $1 million is a lot of money, and I just want to know how that's going to fit into the schedule.
So Jess, could I ask you to call up that email that I forwarded to you? I think there was an attachment of a PDF that had the program distribution. If not, I will send it to you right now. And I will walk you through it. All right. So there's a program distribution that we received from Cdot, and I am too old to multitask. So I'm doing one thing, but it's really, I'm not doing two things. Okay. So we receive a thing from Cdot. On one page is the PPAC direct distribution. Because we are a MPO over 200,000 in population, we receive some of our funding sort of directly. It doesn't, while it flows through Cdot, the distribution formula is such that it basically is, hey, Cdot, here's this money. You have to give it to PPACG. You can't give it to anybody else. Here's this money. You have to give it to Dr. Cog. You can't give it to anybody else. So I'm hoping it just pops up. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Program distribution. No, of course not.
John, while you're doing that, I guess my comment would be, I would like to at least attempt to get all of this straightened out today. And if we can move forward, I think that's better for everybody. If we see that there's just too much of a headache and it's not that we need a little more time to work things out, then I would be okay waiting also. But I'd say at least let's try to move forward today if we can.
All right, and Tim, that is fair enough, and I will do my best to explain it. And again, it would be.
But is the $1 million something we have to make a decision on today, or is that going to come back to us?
No, that could, if that could come back to you, and you could add it later at a, as a
Tip amendment.
tip amendment.
Yeah.
Because when you do your programming, you may program up to the amount, but you cannot program over. So if you're over programmed, you have to sit there and you have to talk about it until you get to the right number. If you're under program, that's fine, and you can always go back and program that later. All right.
I believe that's where we are today, and
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. We're under, especially if we have an extra $1 million potentially.
Yeah. And again, the one that found it.
John, could I ask a question in the meantime? This is Kristen from FTA.
Hi, Kristen.
Hi. We just had an internal kind of meeting the other day, Wendy, Kathleen, Aaron, and myself. And so I'd like to see what Wendy and Kathleen's thoughts are about kind of proceeding with going forward. I just want to make sure they're comfortable and have had a chance to digest the corrected numbers, which it appears are in your packet, but it seems like it's a little confusing still to me. And then I'm assuming this is just a one-time goof. Is that a correct way of saying this was just it's not a systematic issue that's gonna proceed?
That's correct. So we've looked at the figures, the region and John, the PPACG, and I am in agreement with what he has here. The $40,000 long in MPP and the $18,000 short in the TAP program. The thing I'm not sure about is how that TAP number was derived. So in the past, as you know, we had folks working on the program distribution that have either one got promoted or two retired. So you know how that institutional knowledge goes when those kind of things happen. So as this process was being developed, I raised questions and I asked, where's my inflated numbers? Where's our constant dollar numbers? Where's the breakout of TAP and what part of it belongs to PPACG? So I asked all those questions, Christian, and I didn't get the answers that I really wanted to be able to say that I had a good sense of confidence in what was given to me. So in looking at this document that John is pulling up here that's on the screen, if he feels that it's not correct based on what he knows, he has to be the one to bring that back up to the folks out of headquarters, because I did try. And that's kind of where that difference would come in. If there really is an allocation to PPACG that is not part of that program distribution. Does that make sense?
Yes, thanks, Wendy. So it sounds like maybe John and team are a little bit more comfortable, but you're not 100% convinced on where some of these numbers are coming from.
No, I'm good with what we've got to move forward with. I just don't know anything about how our folks at headquarters put together the TAP distributions that he's questioning. I can't answer that because I wasn't involved in that process. Usually, the black box workshop happens and the MPOs are the voices that are giving input into the process and how it works and whatnot. And the region is kept abreast of what's been happening, but not necessarily giving the input. You see what
Okay.
I'm getting at? I mean, because you
Yep.
want the input from planning partners and so anyway, long story short is that this happened about, I think this happened while Craig was still here, honestly, the first part of this conversation. So John and Andy and everyone else has inherited what was left behind. Because as you know, we were in the middle of kicking off this plan when it was put to a halt and it was given a whole new direction. So I think there's some issues that maybe got lost in the shuffle, I guess is the best way to
Okay.
put it.
But it sounds like you're confident in how PPACG's doing their math.
Yes, I'm good with, yes.
That's
yes.
what I really was hoping.
Yes,
Great.
we're good. We're good with
Okay.
that. I checked
you.
it. I've made sure it balanced and so forth.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, well, first off, Kathleen, I don't want to cut you off. Did you have something or should I go back to answering the question?
No, all I can say is if it sounds like you're going to be sending me an email related to this, and I will definitely get an answer for you related to this as well.
Great, thank you. So, Kristen, I think there's a couple of things. And again, I appreciate everything that Wendy is saying. There are a few instances that confused it because one, I was using the wrong match. However, I will say in my defense that this is probably a Colorado thing because I have planning guidance that says TAP is a takedown from your STP dollars and therefore your sliding scale applies. So in my mind, CDOT and the rest of the planning partners should be using the 82.71. Did I get it right? See, now you know why I have problems with numbers.
279.
Damn it, darn rats. All right, so, but there's actually planning guidance that say that's the number you should be using for TAP. However, CDOT is using an 80/20. So that, if that's the way it works here and everyone's been paying 20% this whole time, I'm still relatively the new guy after 3 years, so that's fine. But in my defense, I will certainly point out the regulations to you and to Aaron and to anybody else who wants to question how I do things. I'm actually was correct there on a bigger basis. But again, I don't want to bring that up. Back to sort of the numbers that we're dealing with as far as the TAP dollars. Jess, if you wouldn't mind, can you tap on? And I think you have to use thanks, on the left, hit the region 2 one. So, and then really blow it up for Brandy, because there's no way she's going to be able to read that.
Thank you.
So, and really all we're interested in is sort of going to, when you get to 2025. If you, on the very bottom there, there is that bottom line, if you could scroll over to the left. There you go. That bottom line, it says Transportation Alternatives Program, or TAP. So this is the money that comes into Region 2. And then as it comes into Region 2, it gets divided amongst the different TPRs within the region. My understanding from what we inherited was that there is a standing rule that Region 2 receives about 45% of the Region 2 allocation. So if you scroll over this way now, Jess, you'll see 2025 will come up after a couple of columns. There it is, 2025. So the overall number is 1.595476 that comes into Region 2. That's all of Region 2, what 16 counties or whatever it is. So as you're, when we look at that, then we receive a portion of that. That's where if you could flip over back to the spreadsheet, the TAP spreadsheet, that number is where that came from. I do have issue with perhaps this number isn't exactly correct, but it's the number that we were given by, again, I forget the lady's name, Wendy.
Cheryl Nibby?
Yes, Ms. Kibble or Kibley or whatever. Yes.
Yep.
So we took that number And that's where that number came from. The error that happened again is the difference between an 80-20 split and an 82 something split versus a 17 something split. So once we figure that out, all the numbers match and we're good. Our apologies to Colorado Springs. We would have never had promised you the extra 18,000 a year if we had already known that we were using the incorrect match ratio. But now that we know what the correct match ratio is, and I own that mistake, this is the number, and hopefully Colorado Springs can adjust its number accordingly. So
Well, John, our applications proposed the 80-20 in the first place, so we're expecting that.
yeah, so hopefully you guys would be okay with adjusting the number, the award amount down, the 18,000 something per year, and then we can make the cap balance. Tim?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, if you'd be okay with that.
Can we go through the whole discussion first and then
Sure.
me commit to that?
All right, and then real quickly, Jess, I'm sorry about this. Could you go back to the program distribution? Now we want to go to the one that says PPACG on it. I believe it's page 14. Yeah, so if you go off to the left, there's the navigation. Yep. Oop. All right, and again, blow this up so Brandy can see it. So you can see there's all the different program funds. If you notice right below the word highway towards the bottom, that's our STP Metro. And those are the numbers that we used for our STP funds. And so that's where that number came from. Now, if you keep going down after metropolitan planning, which are the dollars that pay my salary, you'll see there's a transit/multimodal line. And there's a TAP number. Well, my question is, if there's a TAP number there under our direct allocation, why is that not added? And why wouldn't we, or why shouldn't we be programming that? That will be the question in an email that I'll be sending to you and Marissa, Kathleen. And if you guys are like, yeah, of course you should be planning that, I'm not sure why you wouldn't, other than we sort of, again, maybe we misunderstood that email from Miss Kibble or Kibley or whatever. And I don't mean disrespect, but I just don't remember things. And if that's the case, then I believe this region has an additional, if you look at 25, it's an additional little over $1 million, and then $1,084,000, and then another in 27. So that would be an additional $3 million. If you do the 80-20 split, I'm not a math major, but I think that's $2.4 million. You all have extra in TAP to program, and then you'd also have to provide the $600,000 local match to get that. But I believe that's something that we should have been programmed the whole time, and I just need to get confirmation of that. I'm sorry, Kathleen, sounded like I cut you off.
No. I think what I'll do is I'll start the process of drafting an email to Marissa and Cheryl Nibby to resolve this quickly.
Right. Are you sure it's pronounced Nibby? No, I'm sorry. Sometimes
Well,
I
it's
think I'm funny.
Knibbe, so that's my best guess.
You're probably closer than I am. So that explains, I think hopefully that answered the question of how we got to where we are and what numbers are there and what I'm questioning. Because I'm not only questioning the fact that in my mind, we should be receiving this additional $3 million and programming it right now, or again, keeping on schedule. And again, I'll remind everybody, this schedule was based on the FHWA, and I believe Kristen, to some extent, FTA was like, hey, you're out of sync with the state. And so we'd like you to be in sync with the state. So we did back-to-back tips. So that's where that schedule has come from, where we're trying to get in sync with what the state is doing. So
we remember that. Thank you, John.
That's our sort of our time constraint, but I think we can move from there. So at this point, Tim and others, if that's enough background, do we want to talk about taking a break, which maybe sounds like people are more comfortable now and maybe we don't need to do it. And then talking about how we actually change the numbers to reflect what we know is there. And again, we can continue to stay on schedule and we can under program, you just can't over program. So the only thing that has to be fixed is the 18,000 per year in TAP. If that gets fixed today, you can move on and you can program hopefully some additional TAP if I'm correct. And I've been wrong before. And the additional 124,000 in STP. Or you could do fix the TAP issue now and also program the 124 of STP today if you'd like, because we know that is there. We know that exists. That does not have to be confirmed. So it's at the pleasure of you as the committee. So I'll be quiet and let the committee members tell us what you want us to do.
Are you ready to talk yet, Tim, or you want me to start? I know you're out there somewhere. Tim Roberts.
Go ahead with your thoughts, Brandy.
So, I would like to at least get 2 of those 3 out of the way, because it sounds like you need more information on TAP, big TAP, $1 million TAP, before we can even talk about that from Cdot. But if no one objects, and if it's possible, I'd like to take the $124,000 and can we just add it to Woodman? And then Tim can see what he wants to do with his $18,000. Tim?
Was that in the form of a motion she has to write down or more of
Not
a
yet. I gotta
friendly thing?
get
All right.
Tim to weigh in first.
Well, of course, I like that motion.
And anybody else who wants to weigh in.
Yeah. I was expecting a discussion on the Metro funds too. Talking with management, we're okay with the reductions in the TAP funds to help balance the tip. And it sounds like there's plans or there's events that are coming that may help address shortfalls. So I would say the city is willing to make the modifications to make the TAP funds balance. And by modifications, I mean accept the reductions if that's what it takes to balance the books. So yes, we're okay with reducing the Colorado Avenue, the appropriate amounts to make the TAP funds work.
Okay, does anybody object to the additional funds going to the Woodman Road project?
All right, I don't want to say I object, but I think I might want to hold on those funds. Others have projects in that time frame. And as you know, we always get to that point where something goes wrong, something happens that we didn't expect. And maybe we hold on to them just for, just a little bit to see if we have any overruns that need to be covered. Because it wouldn't surprise me that our Judge or Bluegill one may not come in at that exact price also.
So do we just stick it in the ether until then, or what line item does it fall under?
It would be in the ether. Yes. Basically, when you see the tip, we're showing to steal the train line, it's positive train controller. You show the amounts that you're doing, and then you have your actual available funds off in your other sort of chart. So you're not required to program every single dollar. So it will just sit off to the side, and everybody will know that right now as a region, we're $124,000 under programmed in fiscal year 20. Well, it's 40 a year for 25, 26, and 27. So there's 40 a year for those 3 years. And that, again, as we roll towards those years, if you need the money, then you get to move it over without having to take it off of something else. So it's not a bad thing.
Victoria, you promised you're gonna stay until then to keep track of that money for us?
I have no such promises.
Exactly. I mean, someone's gonna have to remember it's sitting in the ether because these spreadsheets are not as concrete as I would like them to be.
Well, I guess, I know a lot of people, I know Monument took a cut. We've took a serious cut in county. A lot of people took reductions on their projects. I don't think anybody took as big of a reduction as we did on Woodman. And I know it's not a lot, but I feel like in giving back on the Colorado Avenue, I feel like, I don't want to say we should have it, but I feel like we should try to make Woodman, Woodman is such a regionally significant project. I would like to apply the funds towards that.
Tim, I hear that, and you probably have not had a chance to look at the email that I sent you earlier, but I have some questions for you that you and I can discuss offline. And once we work that out, then I would be open to a tip amendment to apply those to Woodman. But I want to chat with you about those questions before I say okay. So if we could go forward with what we have right now, you and I talk offline, and maybe we do a tip amendment next month to move those funds.
Yeah. And I'm just kind of peeking at your email, and you're right. The project. So just so people know, the question was, does the Woodman project go to Golden Sage or to, what are the parameters? And our request is design for Woodman Road from Powers to US 24, with construction actually from Powers to 1,000 feet east of Black Forest now. So that needs to be corrected on the tip already. So with that, so we probably need to wait a month and make some corrections.
Right. If I could just throw this out, and again, if you really want to, I can figure out a way to do it. However, as a tip is going through the public process, it is usually considered bad form to amend it before it actually gets adopted. So I would humbly request that if you guys are good with not doing the 124,000 right now, that you let the process play through. After the 23 to 27 tip gets adopted, then tip amendment number 1 could program that $124,000 in addition to any of the additional TAP monies or TA monies we may be due if for some strange reason I'm actually correct and we're actually due those funds. Hopefully that's not a outrageous request, and you can see why I'm making it. But if not, like I said, if it's what you really need to do, I will respect that. I'll do my job and I will figure out a way to do it. But it would certainly be easier if we finish a tip before we amend it.
I guess, John, what I'm saying is the Woodman Road project is actually 2. One is design from Powers to US 24. And the second part is construction from Powers to 1,000 feet east of Black Forest. And what's on this draft tip doesn't reflect either of those.
So can we change, I'm sorry, John, can we change the draft tip right now to include that scope correction and then go ahead and program that 124 into Woodman right now before it's released for public comment?
Yes, if you do it before what goes out to the public comment, then yes, you can, because that's what the public has seen and they're cool with that.
Okay,
You just don't want to show the public something and then give them something else later. That's frowned upon.
And that's what came out of the workshop too, was what I just explained. So, and I think that 124,000 we should apply to the design. So, I guess if once we're ready to make a motion, I can do that. It's 124,000, and what's the amount?
Wait, we have to be exact. Jessica, if you wouldn't mind going to the STP temp, and somebody should write this down so we're not going back and forth. It's the Excel spreadsheet. Sorry, Jess. I owe Jess lunch. All right, so that's the number right down there on the bottom. Looks like it's 124.
40.
40, and don't worry about the cents. We just rounded the nearest dollar. And so, yep, 124,040 is the amount that you would want to, that's available for programming over 25, 26, and 27.
And what's the amount of reduction from TAP?
Why is this?
The amount of reduction in TAP, and again, Jess, I think you already know what's coming. Could you call up the spreadsheet that looks like this, that says tip, tap, tap, tip, temp. The reduction is 18,000 and, oh, well, instead of giving to you by year, I'll just give you the total, 54,395 and 0 cents.
Okay.
Tim, do you want to try to do this in 2 motions? One with SDP and one for TAP?
I can. I want to make sure that we've got proper vetting from like CDOT leadership, other agencies. If there's anybody who's concerned with my request.
I'm gonna just put Wendy on the spot. Wendy, does that make perfect sense to you?
It does. As long as it's a current project, Aaron Busta won't have any issue with it. As long as it's part of the process that you all used to award the funds. It was a project. It's not something that's coming out of left field or wasn't part of that whole public process, because it's not so much me as it is Aaron. So as long as that's the case, you should be fine. And again, I wasn't there, so I don't know.
This is now part of the long range plan because we just amended. Woodman Road was not in the long range plan.
But it's been a part of all of the discussions to date, Tim,
Right.
on the 23 to 27 tip. I believe
Yeah.
Wendy's point is you don't want to come out and say, hey, John needs new landscaping in his new house in La Plata, or La Plata is going to get all mad at him. Let's give the money to John. A brand new project would be something that would probably, again, be frowned upon. You are merely adjusting the numbers based on an earlier Scrivener's error of projects you've already been discussing. I believe this
Okay.
fits within the intent of the public process, and you would be able to do it, in my humble opinion.
I agree with you.
Okay.
May Monument speak about the extra money as well, if that's okay? I understand that everyone needs money for every project, and we need every penny we can get for Jackson Creek Parkway. Monument Junction just submitted phase 1 of their project, which is 204 homes, and their improvements that they're showing in the short run is, I'm not happy with some of those improvements they're showing. And if we can get construction going faster than we can, and they're willing to give us money, but they're waiting for our design to be finished too, to know exactly how much they're going to be giving us. So we have no idea how much the developer's given us for anything for construction wise. We are starting that design, and that should take about a year to complete, and we need any money to help us with construction.
So
I guess.
Can I ask a question? Is Lachelle on, or Matt, or Junior?
they are now.
Yeah, all 3 of us are here, Wendy.
So what do you think about what the conversation just happened with the monument area? So how would you handle that? How would that come into bees? How would we add that money to their project? How would that affect the contract and what you have going at this point?
I'm not as good on the spot as you are, Wendy. I'll have to.
That's why I asked you, because I don't know either.
I have to look at the contract, where the contract's at this point.
So that's would be my concern, is that, you know, it could delay you versus having you be able to accelerate. So just,
Yeah, well, we have some construction money that we have to use in 2022. And we want to use that at Higby Road and intersection of Jackson Creek Parkway to improve the signal there, as well as some drainage. So if we could get more money to go help with that drainage issue there and the signal, that's what we'll be using the money for phase 1 of the project for construction.
Are
It
those-
looks like the contract, it would just be an amendment and an option letter to add funds to the contract. So it wouldn't delay, it wouldn't accelerate, but it wouldn't
Okay.
delay it either.
But it might accelerate their aspect of being able to construct sooner or further, is what I was meant by that. But okay, I was just curious if it would have any detriment to having to write a whole new contract because we're adding local money, or how that would work. So that was my concern.
And this is just for my education. This phase 1 is a federal project that's already
Yes.
has environmental clearance and everything.
Well, the environmental is going on with the design right now.
Okay, and then these funds aren't available until 2025. So how is that going to advance this project?
We were going to do phase 2. I was told that we can start using the 2020. I guess we were getting money. John, were we getting the money in 2024 for construction with this tip? Because I believe we can use it in 2023 if we got it in 2024.
Yeah, so for everyone scoring at home, if you look at the spreadsheet, we've got Jackson Creek Parkway as the second project down on the screen right now. And it looks like there's money in 23. So I think that's the answer to your question is that correct?
Yes. Because we're going to start doing, hopefully in 2023, by that time, we'll know how much the developer will be giving us to help with the construction. So any money on top of that would help us go even further during that time.
Debbie, you realize this money is 41,000 in year 25, 41 in 26, and 41,000 in 27.
Okay.
I'm thinking you probably don't want this money there.
Okay.
And I will tell you on a flip side, I just had a conversation with somebody in Parks, and I suggested they go talk to you to coordinate because we might be able to put 2 of our projects together to help you with this.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good news.
Yeah, so I expect a phone call from Jason. I literally just talked to him this morning. It has not been vetted out yet, but I know that I suggested actually he call Megan.
Okay. I have Megan in the room right now too, listening. But yeah, that's great news. And if that's the case, then if it's 41,000 a year, it'll be hard to use that money from construction during that time for a project this big.
Yeah, let me see if I can help you on the back end here in the future in the next couple weeks.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow. So,
Anybody
John,
else, since we're getting close?
yeah, John, is there not the fact that we can just say it was a clerical error type thing?
Yeah, if you choose to move forward today, again, I believe given that the misunderstanding, we can't, as long as we adjust the tip before it goes out to the public, we can remove the TAP funds. That makes it kosher as far as the feds are concerned. The 124 you can add because it's not gone out to the public and you're adding it to existing projects that have already been under discussion. If you do not act today, and again, I'm not trying to make it sound like that's definite. We can figure it out if you guys are uncomfortable. But if you don't figure it out today, it makes it more difficult because once it goes out to the public and the public sees it, and we've started that process, I would prefer, and I believe our federal partners would also prefer, that you don't monkey with it or touch it again until it gets approved. And then after it gets approved, then we go through our approved and vetted process for doing amendments. And that's when you would then add it again help me out, Wendy, in like 4 months from now, 5 months from now, whatever it would be when it gets adopted, then you could go back and then you could add the 124. So it's either you do it now or you wait about 6 months and then you add it. But in between, it would be cleaner as far as what the public is seeing if you don't touch it until then. That being said, again, we may find that we have additional TAP funds, given this other funding source that I believe is appropriate for us to be using. And we might come back and have a very big TIP amendment waiting for us with those extra, again, $3 million of TAP funds. So.
And it's the years 25, 26, and 27 that we're talking about. So
Correct.
anything prior to those years always can have amendments made because they're in the current TIP.
And then the other issue, Tim, is that your design phase for that project is not in the current TIP.
Because we
Sorry, I
switch
was
over to
muted.
the STP funds.
Sorry, I'm muted. Yeah, so the way that we wound up is what's reflected in the tip today is not what the result was from the workshop. It was actually 2 projects. One was the design phase and then the construction phase.
Are the funds for the design phase somehow accounted for, or is that also need to go with the amendment?
Well, they would be as represented in the spreadsheet minus the 41,000.
Yeah, I believe, again, remember, this is a spreadsheet. The way the spreadsheet works is it just grabs all of the money and it puts it in regardless of phase. So Tim, and we can certainly have this reflect any way you want. And again, as long as we're following your original intent. But as far as the public is concerned, there's just one Woodman project. And within that one Woodman project, you have the design phase, and then you have the construction phase. You don't need to have phase 1 design, phase 2 construction. It's all one project. So within the TIP document, it will show X amount of dollars in early years for design, then probably some pre-construction dollars later on for any sort of utility or right of way. And then it would have the rest of the money in later years for construction. So I don't believe you need to quote unquote phase it for design versus construction. Unless that's what you really want to do, we're happy to comply. But within the TIP itself, it will be one project that has multiple phases.
The difference is the design is a much larger section than the actual construction.
Okay, well then we can separate that out, and I don't believe that damages the intent of the discussions held to date.
Yeah.
So Tim, is the design going to take 3 years? Do you want that $40,000 in those 3 years, or do you have a rough idea how long the design is going to take so we can allocate it appropriately?
Yeah, we had a design. Well, we had design in year 1. There's already been there's already an existing design that we are updating the environmental, and then we were updating the design. So it should be able to be, our schedule shows it could be done in a year. And then the construction, we could, it would definitely take 2 years at a minimum.
Okay, Tim, this is Gail, just to provide some further clarification on what you said underneath. The NEPA was actually complete. This would be require a reevaluation just with the update on the existing design.
Yep.
And then is the original application, are the limits to include your whole limits, Tim? And not just the phase design limits of this first section?
Yeah, so the construction is definitely different than the design limits.
No, but I mean, the project application, those limits include all of your construction limits? Like in the project definition?
Yes, so when after our workshop, I submitted revised applications that reflected the design of the, Powers to 24, and then the construction from Powers to 1,000 feet east of Black Forest. So we revised our original request, original application to reflect what I'm mentioning here.
Because I'm just getting to the point that if your original project description includes the limits the full limits, just because your design phase is smaller limits, I don't think you'd have to amend anything.
Well, except it's the other way. The design is a larger limits, construction is a shorter.
So the design exceeds
The
the
construction,
the project description though, that's in the tip?
the proposed project, yes.
Okay, okay.
Hi, this is Kristen again. I've got another question for John. John and team, sorry to interrupt. John, so are we gonna, if we stall, if the committee decides to stall by 1 month, does that basically just throw havoc into the public outreach schedule to meet that January deadline? Is that the problem?
Define havoc. No, all it does is I think we sent out or started the process to have public open houses. So for us to meet that, it would need to go to the next board meeting. So that's the only thing. But I did start the conversation with if the attack so decided, they could certainly delay a month. We just have to re-advertise if we have already. Perhaps we haven't. I have to check with Jessica McMillan. I saw her on earlier before, so just feel free to chime in and let us know if we've already paid money to the Gazette to advertise for the open houses. But even if we have, you know, we publish a notice that says the meeting's been canceled, and then we re-advertise. So it's $64 per thing or something like that. So Jessica McMillan, are you on?
I am.
Did we already pay for that?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
So yes, we have already run one of the postings for it, but not about the open houses yet. So just that it was coming up for comment. So we should be able to easily adjust these things.
Okay, so that it was coming out for comment, but not officially out yet.
I will need to double check which language we used.
Okay.
Well, what if we could agree to not worry about the future TAP money just yet, knowing that it's several years out, it's not going to affect anyone's immediate project near-term issues, but we do amend it to include Tim's additional project limits, and go ahead and get everything approved, knowing that there's additional funds for TAP in future years that we tentatively have earmarked for the Woodman Road project. So it can sit in the ether for 4 months. We can get better data, get everything out there, get the process going, get it approved, and then amend it. And to the point, we're going to have to amend it anyways, probably to include that additional $1 million. So we could also add in the 124,000 for those 3, or the 40,000 for those 3 years at the same time in that future amendment.
Yeah, I'd rather do it all at once if we can agree to it, just so we can get at least 2 of these 3 out of the way.
Well, but we don't.
Talking about 3 million. We don't what?
Well, I think it's as broad as it is long.
What do you mean?
Well, the 41,000s are 2025, 2026, 2027. So there's not like a huge rush to get it done, and we could amend it all at once.
Yeah, we never amend it all at once. We do this a lot. So that's one less
I just
thing
mean the
that we
TAP
all have
funds.
to remember. No, I know we'll fix the TAP funds. I think we don't have a choice but to fix the TAP funds.
So
But-
you would like to delay it a month?
No, I don't need to delay it at all. I'm perfectly comfortable with it. And Victoria was our only outlier, and Victoria's comfortable with it. So I think as long as Tim's willing to take it, Victoria doesn't have any heartburn about it going, and nobody else wants to argue over $40,000 a year when we came to an agreement on 23 million. I think it'll get it moving so that the public can see that it's all allocated. There's nothing in the ether. There's not 124,000 sitting anywhere. And then when John finds out if we have additional TAP funds, we can have that conversation in 6 months. And that's a big chunk of money, and we can start from scratch.
Well, that's a convincing argument.
I'm with Brandy. I
So-
just needed Tim to acknowledge we were doing that design, and that clerical error got fixed in this scoping document. But I would rather put it all out with everything allocated and with the corrected scope in here for
Yeah.
public comment.
Yeah.
And that's on Tim to make the right motion, so no pressure, Tim.
That's what I was gonna say. Would it help if I made the motion? If I got a second, then we had the discussion on that motion and then move forward from that.
And do you want to split them up like Victoria said? So one's STP and one's TAP?
Yes, I would.
Thank you.
Good suggestion. With the chairman would be okay, acceptable of that?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm gonna do the easy one first. I move that we reduce the TAP funding in the amount of $54,395,000 balanced across the program years to equal the available TAP funds to the region.
I'll second. Victoria.
Thank you, Victoria. All right, any discussion on that motion? Okay, all those in favor of Tim's motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Or raise your hand if you're muted. Anyone else, anyone opposed to that motion? Speak up. Okay, Tim, motion passes.
Okay. Now for the Metro. I move approval of the Metro project. I wish I had the, hold on one second. Motion. I move approval of PPACG's recommended Metro programming with a correction to Woodman Road limits to reflect Woodman Road design and environmental reevaluation from Powers to US 24 and construction of Woodman Road widening to 6 lanes from Powers to 1,000 feet east of Black Forest Road. The programming of 41,000 of the surplus, $124,040, equating to $41,000 per program year of 25, 26, and 27 to be assigned to those 2 projects.
Victoria to second.
Any discussion on that motion that no one will ever be able to repeat word for word?
I expect PPACG staff to help verify that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor in a second. We've had discussion. All those in favor of Tim's motion, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, please say nay.
Hey, this is Megan from Monument. I'm gonna say nay.
Okay. Doesn't that mean, John, that we have additional discussion?
Yes.
Okay, let's additionally discuss that.
What,
Megan?
why? Okay.
Well,
I mean, she
look
can
at-
give a reason, but she doesn't have to. It's up to her.
Well, I'll give you a reason of, I look at the Woodman Road project and I see 2.4, 4.3, 3.3 for those 3 years. And I don't see how the 41, I mean, Victoria's argument was, hey, Debbie, how does 41 additional help for that 3-year period? But I would argue the same thing for Woodman Road. It's a much bigger project. It's a drop in the bucket. It's a smaller drop. So I mean, there's enough votes for it to pass, but I just don't think that if Monument's interested in the funding as well, again, I'm pretty new, but I don't see why we have to vote to go along with it. You have enough votes and that's fine. But I think it should just be on the record that Monument would still be interested in more funding. We have a major project and we're scraping bare bottom.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't this, when it goes to the board, it's the nay is explained?
No, not,
No?
I don't think so. We just passed with that the TAC recommends approval because you have a majority of your voting members have voted. So
The minutes go to the board, so I can put in a line within the TAC minutes saying the reason for monuments opposed. position.
Yeah.
So I'll make sure that's noted in there.
Sure. That's absolutely fine. I have no intention of pushing it any further, and I understand why everybody, needs every little bit counts. So as long as we can just from Monument say, nope, we don't agree, it goes and everything keeps moving as it is, but I just don't want to vote yes.
And Tim, how much was your original request that got reduced down to?
It was, I'm gonna go off the top of my head here. Gail may be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but we were at 17 million and we got reduced to 11 million.
All right. So that's like 2/3 of your original request.
Yes.
Okay.
And we completely cut all of the funding that El Paso County asked for Woodman Road. Thank you, Victoria, for taking one for the team. So just so you kind of understand, Megan, how we got here, because I don't know that you were in that meeting. We usually look at the big pot of money and then try to figure out the projects that we can tackle and then leave money for the smaller entities, it's a completely nightmarish balance. And I totally get it. When you're in the smaller municipalities, you look at these big chunks of money and I'll be honest, they generally end up going into Colorado Springs and El Paso County. And we do our best as we can now and then to kind of swap and trade and make people whole. But when it comes to a project like Woodman Road, it's hard to argue that's not regional. And we usually pick those projects like Cimarron, I-25 that generally impact a lot of people. And that is a big project. And Tim and Dole are right. We basically cut it in half, if not almost a third, because we completely cut out all of the funding for the county because there was a big project that Jennifer really felt needed to be funded. So we're not taking any of the projects necessarily off the list. It's just now they're going to fall into the 28, 29, 30 pot, and then we can have that conversation. And even if John comes back with more TAP funds, we can have that conversation. But as hard as it is with the tiny amount of money we have to work with, we try to come together and do the best that we can. And I appreciate Colorado Springs and El Paso County's willingness that when we made the proposal to say, can you handle 15 million so that we can divide the rest of the money amongst the rest of the smaller municipalities, that they were willing to accept that. And we have to appreciate that, because at the end of the day, they are the 100-pound gorilla, and really the rest of us are just trying to do what we can for our smaller entities. So I understand where you're coming from, and it's really hard to look at those numbers, but do realize we're trying to do our best to work together regionally so that everybody gets a project, and it may not all happen in the year that it needs to happen. And Dole, we appreciate what you've done up in Manitou and everybody just working together. So I know it's hard to look at these numbers, and it's not your favorite thing in the world. It's none of our favorite things, but we really do our best to work together to try to stretch these dollars as much as we can.
Absolutely understand. I'm actually with Monument, not Manitou. Still understand, and I just am voting no. But thank you.
So this is Wendy from Cdot. There's something else to also keep in mind at this point. A lot of what we're looking at here is the fact that we need more federal dollars, and the fact that the new authorization, whether it becomes a extension of the FAST Act or the new authorization happens before the end of the month, at some point here in the next few months, we should see something that allows us to know what kind of federal funds are going to come to Colorado. And those will be divided up. So there could be a reason to have another conversation to add current funding to something. So this would be a perfect opportunity for the Jackson Creek project because it needs money now. And it would be, and if the federal funding is increased over those years as they're talking through the process, then that would give us the ability to backfill some of the cuts and maybe make El Paso County's project a realistic expectation. So just one thing I can tell you is that we don't know what the answer is today. It's coming, And hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have some definite direction. And then there's also the 260 process and some of the things that are coming out of all of that craziness. So we've got some really interesting times coming ahead of us to be able to put money into projects that we haven't been able to do since I came to the region, like in between 2003, 2006 was the last time that we had big chunks of money to be able to really distribute out and make a difference. So just keep that in mind.
Well, and I think that the point is, and like Megan said, there will be record for her to show that Monument doesn't vote for it, but there's enough, we have a quorum and it passed. So motion passes. And let's keep moving on. We still have several agenda items. Okay. We good? Maybe slightly disappointed. Okay, let's move on to some of our informational items. Cdot updates. Anyone from Cdot have any updates that they would like to add?
Hi, this is Kathleen Collins. In terms of HQ, I can just tell you that in terms of COVID, the mask wearing is now required regardless of vaccination status. And so if you come to the HQ building, you will need to wear a mask and also adhere to some social distancing just as a precaution. I don't have any other major announcements from HQ. Wendy or any of the other folks from CDOT have any things to add?
Do you want to have a chat about the update of the 10-year document, or is that on the agenda?
It's on the agenda, so I thought I would wait until.
Okay, all right, no problem. No, I don't have anything else to add either, other than the fact that Region 2 is also under those same guidelines, and it just is what it is at this point. So Lachelle, Junior, Matt, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I think we're good. Thank you.
But I do think you're sitting a little close to each other. That's all I'm saying.
I was gonna try to be a ninja and put on my mask, but.
Okay, thank you, CDOT. We'll move on to your 10-year plan update.
I apologize that we have to sneak out, so bye.
Thanks,
Okay.
Lachelle.
Was it something Will said?
So Jessica, can I share my screen, or I did send you a PDF of a presentation that was given to Stack. So I don't know if you want to pull it up.
Go ahead and give it a try. And if it doesn't work, I have it on my machine as well. So go ahead and give it a try.
Okie dokie. Is anything coming up?
Yeah.
Yep, we can see you.
Oh, great. Okay, so just so I don't miss any important points related to this, this is the presentation that was given at the September Statewide Transportation Advisory Committee meeting. And it's all about why we're going through the process of updating the 10-year plan. Just to give you a little background, the 10-year plan pipeline of projects, it was built with the assumption of $500 million a year coming into CDOT. And the plan was divided into two segments, the 4-year prioritized list, and then also the out years, which are years 5 through 10. Region equity was part of it based on RPP midpoint, where there were two formulas used. One was more urban focused and the other one was more rural focused. Then we also had projects based on statewide outreach funneled through the rural TPR MPO prioritization within the framework of Transportation Commission guiding principles. And then what we've done that's a little different now is we've combined transit and highway needs when we talk about projects. To give you some information about the first 3 years of allocations, this slide gives the specific dollar amounts. And I can go ahead and send you this presentation if you would like to review it more closely. I won't go over these different funds, but basically CDOT got extra money and we are spending it and putting it to good use. This portion of the presentation gives you the status of projects. Overall, there are 144 projects advanced from the 10-year plan, and they're broken out by highway, transit, multimodal, and rural paving. And we've tried to cover every corner of the state in terms of this rural pavement program, which is a first. It represents over $300 million being invested on over 600 miles of rural roads across the state. And then we've also made some progress on mobility hubs, which are hubs that have different facilities that help promote multimodal transportation. And we are making progress on them. Here is a map of all the years 1 through 3 projects, and you'll see that the color coding breaks them out by highway, multimodal, rural paving, and transit. And there is one rural paving project with dotted line that indicates they were at targeted locations along that particular corridor of, I can't read the corridor. I think it's I-25 though, or no, it's not. It's further to the east, forgive me. So why are we updating this plan? We have several things going on that necessitate us to reevaluate it. With the completion of years 1 through 4 of this plan, we need to identify the next set of priority projects, the next clump of 4 that funnel out of the 10-year plan. We also got additional funding through Senate Bill 260, and we need to figure out how we're going to spend that money. And then also more specifically with Senate Bill 260, the greenhouse gas emission reduction requirements, that's going to influence how we spend our dollars as well. So we are looking at the 10-year plan again, and we are not starting from scratch. This is taking what we know to date and then refining it based on updates related to these 3 bullets. And Executive Director Lou remains committed to funding the original list of projects, years 1 through 4. And the idea is we're getting close to delivering most of 4, but we still need to deliver what remains. And then we need to also look at the out years that we've already prioritized and need to prioritize what we're going to work on specifically for those out years. And then we also need to make sure we consider the greenhouse gas emissions reduction policies in place when we look at these projects. Let's see. So we did assume 500 million per year of funding to build the 10-year plan originally. But we need to get more detailed numbers. Jeff Sudmeyer, our chief financial officer, is looking at the numbers and figuring out what we're going to be able to assume, looking at the 5 to 10 year projects. And right now, I believe the message is that the dollars may be a little less than the 500 million, but we really don't know for sure. Also, the federal authorization is still to come about, and we really don't know how that will influence the funding. But we know that we definitely want to consider regional equity, fiscal constraint, and align with the Transportation Commission's guiding principles, plus the greenhouse gas planning requirements. But we also want to make sure we give a nod to all the extensive work that was already put out by the rural TPRs and the database of unfunded project needs in their regional transportation plans. So here is the criteria that was used last time to influence the project prioritization. in the 10-year plan, and you'll see that there is a box to the right with new criteria, which of course is the greenhouse gas and then whatever else may come to the mind of the Transportation Commission, but that's the primary one we're thinking of right now. So what we're trying to do is make sure that this update will be transparent and stakeholder driven. We also want to engage the transit stakeholders, and that the prioritization will retain the 2-segment approach, a new term 4-year list and then out years. And then in terms of the MPOs and the TPR engagement options, rural TPRs, 1 to 2 virtual meetings to reconfirm and prioritize projects for them. And then we'll use the existing metropolitan planning organization processes like today's meeting to work with Cdot and reconfirm and prioritize projects. We may have, separate meetings or workshops, or else we could piggyback on the TAC or something like that, depending on how you guys want to work with us on this. And then each Cdot region 2 is going to host a TPR chair meeting on, we're scheduling it tentatively right now for December 9th to talk and confirm that the projects consider everything at the region level. So that's the information I have on the 10-year plan. Are there any questions?
Kathleen, it's not the 9th.
It's not the 9th of December? I
No.
thought it was.
Let me look real quick.
I had it on my calendar as the 9th. That's why I said that date, but I could be
So
wrong.
the 9th doesn't work because then PPACG will have adopted changes at the board meeting if we need to go down that route to be done by December before the TPR meeting, and we can't do that.
Oh, okay.
So it would probably be, it's going to be the week of November 29th. It'll either be the 30th or the 3rd of December. I'm not sure which at this point. That's up to Richard. It's still kind of up in the air as to which one of those dates will happen if we still need to make the end of the year as our deadline.
Okay, thanks for that correction, Wendy.
Sure.
I was going off of old information.
Yeah,
Apologies.
and that was part of the problem. I looked at that. It's like, nope, that doesn't work. Sorry. The MPOs can't have all the work done. And what if the TPRs don't like it?
Okay, well, anyway, this is what we're planning to do. And then the whole idea is Executive Director Liu would like to have this process wrap up at the end of December, if possible. That's what we're aiming for right now. And so and we definitely are gonna bring this back to you to determine how it would work with the Pikes Peak area. So that's the news on the 10-year plan. Any comments or questions?
Kathleen, this is Victoria. Can we get a list of our projects in Region 2 and which ones are funded or complete and which ones are left outstanding?
Yes, I will work with Marissa Gahan to get a list of that nature to you guys.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Nope. Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you, Dole.
Okay, moving on. We have a crash data update. Looks like Jason's gonna perhaps be presenting that information to us.
Do you want to do it on a day when you're not having people leave on you, or is it time sensitive?
It's not time sensitive. It could wait. How many people do we still have on the meeting?
It's 3 o'clock. Are a lot of people going to get? I noticed Jason packed up. So if people are going to leave, we can put it next month. Okay, we're good. Never mind.
Okay.
I wanted to give people that option.
Okay. No, that's a good option. I appreciate that.
I'll be quiet. I'm sorry.
Jason O'Brien, PPACG Transportation Planner. Really just an announcement about a project that we're wrapping up now and a new product that's going to be available to our members and partners and eventually the public. It has to do with traffic crash data and traffic safety. We've taken on a little bit more of a role there since 2018 when the region broke our historic fatality record, which we've since broken again in 2020 for different reasons. And now, unfortunately, are probably on the track to break yet again in 2021. So crash data is a big opportunity here. Traditionally, our crash data is very poor. It's rich in terms of information, but in terms of how we use it, it's not that great. Typically what we have and what our members have are these long tables of crash records they're really laborious to work with. And so what we really would like to have is crash data that we can map easily, that we can plug and play with. So that's been a big missed opportunity. What we did was hire a consultant out of a grant that we successfully competed for to clean up this data and to make it easy to project in a map for any commercially available GIS software. That work has recently been completed, and now we have that data. We've got a database very rich with information and also easy for anybody to map. We're still doing a little bit of cleanup internally, but the heavy lifting is done, and the data should be available later this month. Will Mast, our GIS lead, and his team they're going to make the data available to member governments and partners first, and then later on this year, the public as well. We're not the first to do this. Crash data cleanup and geolocating. El Paso County has done this as part of their great road safety plan. Colorado Springs has done it. What PPACG's project did was complete the data set for the whole 3-county region. So we now have complete, consistent, accurately located crash data for all of El Paso, Teller, and Park counties. And specifically what we have is 5 years of crash data, mappable crash data for 2015 to 2019. And the PPACG GIS team, even more significantly, is going to continue this annually going forward. So our grant project that we completed was to sort of get us to a baseline of 5 years of data, to get the processes and the support products in place so that we can continue the effort. And from here on, the PPACG GIS team is going to sustain that project in-house. And each year there's going to be another year of clean, accurate, mappable crash data for the whole region, the whole 3-county region. There's a little bit of a lag because the pathway that this data goes along is it's collected by local law enforcement, the responders, then goes to the Colorado Department of Revenue, then to Cdot, and then back to us. So we're going to have a 1-year lag. Each year, we're going to put out the full crash database for the previous year. So by the end of this calendar year, we'll have the full 2020 crash database out for everybody. For those there's a couple of us who use the Vision Zero Suite crash analysis software. That would be Colorado Springs and Cdot Region 2. Our geocoding was done by the same vendor who does that, who owns that software and does that geocoding. And our GIS staff are fully trained on that. So the data that we put out is fully ready to just go right into that system without you having to do anything else with it. For those who don't use it, you don't need it. Your GIS staff will be able to manipulate that, map it, and generate reports from it without that software. So you definitely don't need it. I just want to say this is potentially a hugely powerful traffic safety tool. Wasn't a very expensive project. I think if it's small but mighty, it could make a big difference. I hope we can all make the fullest use of it. For some of us, it'll be the first time that we've been able to visualize traffic crashes in our town or in our county. So crashes can be easily mapped by severity, by causation, by contributing factor. So for example, if you only wanted to see injury crashes that happened in poor visibility in the morning where the car went off the road, you would be able to query that and map that quickly and easily, I might add. In terms of what will actually be available as of this month, we can share a database with you that your GIS staff will be able to use to generate maps and reports. But by the end of this calendar year, Will Mast and his team expect to have a web application up and running that will let anybody generate the map they're interested in and download it. For any engineers or GIS staff that have questions, we have full documentation on the process that was used if they want to know how the data were generated. To get an idea of the quality, we have that. And for any questions that aren't addressed in that, Will is the expert. I'm sure he wouldn't mind answering any questions. Any questions at this point from anybody? And we'll plan on sending out a link to the database to our member jurisdictions and this committee's mailing list.
I can't raise my hand. Sorry, Dole. That's what happens when you're actually in person. You mentioned it was a cloudy day and they drove off the road. How many different variables are there? And is there an effort, since these numbers clearly aren't going down, and not that our police officers don't have enough to do, but to really track all of that in the field? Are they making it easier so they can just check a bunch of boxes and then they correlate with what you get, or how is that working?
The data is very rich. There are many fields. I would say 30 to 40 data fields in there, more than we've been able to use so far. But it's very rich data. And I'm not sure I understand what your question is about populating a different field.
Right. So when an accident occurs and they take the report, do they have all of these different variables that you have? Like, are the two kind of working in sync and in harmony, that all the different options that you have in GIS, that person logging the accident in the field has all of those different boxes to check, so that by the time you guys get the information, they all correlate? Like, are you working hand in hand with the police department, or are you taking what the police department has and then using it? Or is there a conversation going back and forth?
It's the second choice. We're taking the data from the crash reports. So the raw crash reports go from the law enforcement officers, and they go to the Department of Revenue, and they do a little bit of compilation of that data. Then Cdot does further compilation, things like reducing redundant records and things like that. But we get ultimately the format changes from what the officers use in the field, but all of the data fields are preserved, and they come to us, and then we can just we're basically just the end users of the data fields.
I think I've heard this at one of the meetings, so just feel free to correct me, Jason, but to your point, your question, Brandy, I believe CDOT and the state and the Department of Revenue who collects it has been working with law enforcement agencies to standardize the form. So if they're collecting it in Fountain or Colorado Springs or whatever, it's now a standardized form. That wasn't always the case. I believe Colorado Springs had a different sort of form, and that was when I first got here 3 years ago. That's why. So am I saying things that are making sense, or am I?
It makes sense to me. I just want
Okay.
to make sure that does that address your question? I just want to make sure we're answering your question.
Right. Since sadly, people are not going to stop dying in crashes until I think we have as much information as we possibly can. And then we as engineers and constructors can use that on the front end. It's nice to make sure that this is all the information we think we need, and this is all the information that we think we need is being collected by law enforcement, so that we can correlate the two to bring that number down as much as we possibly can.
Right. We're not the lead agency, but I believe it's being addressed by
Okay.
the state
Yeah.
through the different departments to standardize that collection.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was my question.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the question. And at this point, I would say there's so much data going unused that there's really just so much potential, even before we get to the point where we want more data. But that's a great question. But there's just a tremendous amount of untapped data that's just been totally unused, because we've got for the region, it's tens of thousands of crash records. And from the quick sort of flash maps that we've done looking at it internally, there are some patterns that really pop that probably nobody's ever seen before, because if you're just looking at a spreadsheet, very difficult to see. So potentially very powerful and a huge amount of data. I hope to make good use of it. And I know that Will's got some great ideas for how to share it and make it as easy as possible for everybody to use it. But any other questions or comments, send them on to us, please.
Do you want us to coordinate with you or Will? Which one? Because eventually we'll take this back to our GIS, but I don't. All right, I'll send them to you. And then I'm assuming maybe once we get our hands on this, we could have a bigger conversation as to what you found in the region.
Yeah, hopefully so. I'd like to have good follow-up, because there's just so much there. And we'll have to talk about the balance of, right now we see ourselves as the providers of the data and not the folks doing the analysis, just because we imagine everybody's going to want to do their own type of analysis. And it should be fairly easy for any GIS staff to be able to map it and to query it and make any other kind of maps or reports they want. So that's where we're at this point, if that makes sense.
So maybe you don't need to analyze it, but get us all in the same room and at least let us have a conversation about best practices on how to fix it.
I think that would be great. And it's, that would be great to do. So I guess we can come back to you and figure out who all is interested in that. I can think of a few people off the top of my head we could follow up. Okay.
Okay, for sake of time, thank you.
Okay, and please contact Will for the data. Thank you.
Very helpful. All right, let's move on to we're running out of time here. So our TAC discussion around the greenhouse gas. John, if you want to give us an update.
Monday of this week, there was a wonderful presentation that I put on with Andy and others. And Jess Bechtel just sent that out, the recording of that. So in the interest of time, is there anything in specific anybody has any questions on or that would like to talk about more in more detail? Victoria, not trying to call you out, but I think this is an item you wanted on there. Is there anything specific you want us to focus on in the meeting here?
So the only thing I wanted to say is, one, I think this region really needs to pay attention to this rule. There are definitely some potential impacts that may come down depending on how the final rule comes out. And I wanted to let everybody know that on September 24th, there is a public meeting. You can attend that virtually. You do have to sign up beforehand if you want to attend it either in person or virtually. It's at Quail Lake Loop at the Cdot facility. And I'm sorry, I don't remember the time off the top of my head. And then if you want to make public comments on the proposal, you can do it either at that meeting on the 24th, or you can submit them in writing by October 15th. So I just want to highly encourage anybody to take a look at the rule and submit comments if you have concerns like I do.
Thanks, Victoria. And I believe it's from 3 to 6 on that Friday, the 24th. So
thank you. You're right.
And I could not agree with you more that I believe that depending on how the rule is implemented, it could severely impact our ability to do capacity building projects in the future. So I think everybody needs to please provide their comments in writing. If we get every jurisdiction to weigh in on it, that would be awesome.
Do we need to have a meeting before that meeting or anything and discuss it internally so we're more united on something?
Not a terrible idea. Happy to pull that together. Probably not before the 24th because I'll be in DC next week for the chamber thing. But certainly before written comments are due by the 15th, we could probably pull something together, even if it's just a virtual Zoom call where I can share some comments that we might be making over that. So we could certainly pull that together, Mr. Chair, if that's your direction.
Well, at least enough of a summary or something that I could present to our people so that they know what's coming. So, no one's blindsided by any decisions or discussions.
Sure.
I'm not an expert on the greenhouse gas policies, so I can't speak from any kind of position of experience.
Yep. Like I said, I'm out next week, but when I come back, well, I'll pull something together and probably be for the ease of it, we'll probably just do it virtually. And I'll send out a Zoom link and just, we can all chat.
Okay.
Those that are interested.
So if you want to call me, I'm happy to chat with you too.
Okay. Well, I think, Victoria, but your experience and knowledge might be helpful for I may not be the only one on this call who doesn't fully understand what's being discussed. That's why I'm bringing it up.
You might all want to call Victoria, quite frankly.
Oh, maybe
again,
Victoria maybe she just needs to host the virtual session then.
Well, I'm not trying to get out of anything and I'm happy to pull it together, but Victoria's right. This is all sort of very personal, each individual jurisdiction, depending if you're PPRTA, not PPRTA, MPO, not MPO, big or little, if you're a county versus a city or a town. So actual individual conversations is not a terrible idea. And if Victoria's willing and able to have chats with folks, that's going to be probably far more effective than having everybody to get together and trying to cover 15 different points of view in one meeting. But I do know Victoria's busy, so maybe that's not a real option.
Okay.
And that meeting is next Friday, and if you're out next week, then that's not gonna happen before next Friday. So
Yeah,
did you
n-
want
yeah.
it before next Friday, Dole? Because I don't know that that
Well-
would be in the cards.
That's why John was suggesting at least before written comments were due.
Yeah.
I'm assuming there's some sort of a 30-day
There's-
comment
there's-
period or something.
There's a 60-day comment period that's already running that ends October 15th. So that's the
Okay.
last day for written comments. If you go to the website, you can already take a look at what's been posted. Lots of letters from the Sierra Club and other folks already making comment about the rules. So
Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. Get to go through any member announcements that people would like to make and update the group with.
So this is Sally. Just a quick note. Last month I mentioned that we were posting our city engineer position. And this month we're actually posting my position for a planning director, as I will retire at the end of this year. So I know that Manitou Springs is also looking for a planning director as well. Lots of changes.
All I
You
can
wanna-
say is you can't go.
Well, we're just going to hire Sally.
No, I've worked for 45 years straight in my life, so I'm
Good for
ready
you,
to
Sally.
retire.
That's terrific.
Go and enjoy because life's too short.
Yes, it is.
So if I could do this under member announcements, as I've mentioned, I'm not going to be available next week. On my calendar, I do have a project check-in. I think Dole, you had one on Tuesday, and Sally, you had one on Thursday. If you guys want to go ahead and continue to have those with CDOT local agency and Lachelle, go ahead and reach out to them. But otherwise, we might want to postpone those when I'm back. But you certainly don't need me. All I would do is nag and say, you got to spend the money. You got to spend the money. Hurry up, hurry up. So I think you can have a productive meeting without me. So feel free to continue to hold them. I think Dole, you've already set yours and you control the Zoom or GoToMeeting. But Sally, I don't think yours has been set yet by Zoom or any other thing. So if you still want to have it, you might want to get your invite sent out to the local agency folks.
Okay.
And mine I just have mine as a standing. We just do it once a month.
Okay, well, then you definitely don't need me, and you just might want to make sure that the local agency folks are still going to be there, because I'm not going to be there to nag people. I mean, remind people.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Did you try to reschedule mine?
Yeah, I thought I already did, because that's actually the week. I'm back that week, and I thought I moved it from 2 to 3. No?
It's still 3 o'clock on my calendar, or 2 o'clock on my calendar.
All right, well, I'll get to it. Kind of like all the people who are waiting for tip amendments. Apparently, you have to teach yourself how to do tip amendments before you can actually do them. So. they're
Okay,
all
any other
works
member
for-
announcements?
Yes, I am taking my master transportation plan to council, which will change our street cross sections in Fountain. So I would say it's more probably for smaller municipalities, since we've done our best to kind of put parts and pieces together. And I steal from the county and from the city. So thanks, guys, for all of your street cross section input. And that way it's just something for other smaller jurisdictions to look at, give an idea of. In my opinion, we have a little bit more flexibility being smaller. Manitou, you don't have any room anyway, so it's not like you can make a wider street if you wanted to.
We're already
but-
small.
Right, but for those other people building new roads and things like that, it might be something for them to look at. So that'll be coming at the end of September.
Great.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, any other items for future TAC meetings?
Again, we're going through the tip process, so that'll come back to you. as well as what we find out about the transportation alternatives funds. Additionally, the CDOT 10-year plan will be an item that we'll be chatting about. Additionally, this is one of those things that have been just moved off to the side, and it's unfortunate because I do think it's important, and hopefully you all still do as well. But there were some discussions a few months back about having some sort of resolution by the board on priority projects. Priority project maybe for some funding sources, maybe one or two for other funding sources. But there is opportunities, especially with the new infrastructure bill, where there will be opportunities to get funding. And having a resolution that says this project, put your favorite project name here, is a priority, I think is something that would be worthwhile as they go through the build, infra, et cetera, sort of grant process, in addition to having our own priorities set within the region as we go through things. So the discussion a few months back was, hey, I think 3 or 4 years ago, we had we passed a resolution on a priority project. We should do that again. We here at PPACG, Andy Gunning, myself, totally agree. And we had just started sort of figuring out how to do that and had started discussions with different folks on what the appropriate process would be when we got blindsided with 10,000 other sort of things that popped up. So hopefully, if not next month, the month after that, we'd like to sort of revive that conversation, at least to make sure that all of you are on board and are willing to sort of have a discussion of what the fair and open process would be to set those priority projects, understanding that, again, those projects would ultimately go to the board and seek a resolution of support from the board for that particular project moving forward. So I think that's it. That as far as what we'll be having coming back to you in the next couple of months.
Okay. Anything else from anyone? All right, let's adjourn this meeting. No objections.
We also moved.
The meeting must continue because of a lack of a second.
Woody, wake up.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.
I thought we determined you don't have to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
You do not.
Correct. You
Yeah,
do not.
okay.
That is
All right.
correct. Close it up.
I thought so. Gail's just teasing me.
The
Of course she
only
is. Wanted to make sure.
All
So
right, thanks
Dole-
everyone.
So Dole, the only exception to that is if you have not covered all the items on the agenda, then you need a second to sort of a first and a second permission to sort of say, hey, we're ending this meeting and we're not going to do the rest of the agenda. But if
Okay.
you've covered all of the items on agenda that were duly posted, you do not need a motion to
Okay.
say meeting adjourned. Ka-thump.
I'm going to get that, Gail. All right. Thanks everyone.